What happened? Barclays just suddenly said, you would bank with some time, your account's been closed.
Just received a letter, I have to say, after a sustained period of pressure from LGBT activists who were phoning, I think some 300 phone calls over a couple of days, a vast amount of material sent in our direction that we really wouldn't want. The evidence is there on social media, and what had happened was Barclays came under scrutiny, were accused of supporting a so-called conversion therapy outfit, and the result was that they closed the account. We simply received letters saying that the account is closed, and will close.
They were going to do that in spite of the fact that you weren't breaking the law, you were operating within the law and within your religious principles.
I think, you know, at the very least, I would have expected Barclays to give us a call and say, what's going on? What are you doing? Could you give us some reassurance that you're not breaking the law? Help us to understand what the heart of it is that you are doing. But there was nothing of that. The day I received the letters, I phoned Barclays, asked them why, and they simply said, we're not obliged to give you a reason.
And that seems very unfair, because Nigel Farage is finding the same thing, that he won't get any reason for why a bank is trying to close his account. And as one of the Mail Mog said, the onus ought to be on the bank to explain why it's doing it, so you can challenge their reasoning.
That's absolutely the case. If we'd had that, I think we could have put forward a good case. We could show that we are accountable, that we are seeking to be professional, that we are aware of the controversies, and that we are not over-promising or we're not forcing people in any way, but we are simply facilitating the right and freedom of therapeutic and counselling choice.
And you had people who were protesting against you, so it was very much Barclays giving in to pressure from an outside group, rather than anything arising in your accounts that gave Barclays any reason to think anything untoward was going on.
That's exactly correct.
And so people who didn't like you were able to set the pace.
And not only Barclays Bank, it was also MailChimp that was lost permanently. It was also TikTok. It was all of our social media accounts on Facebook, PayPal, and no amount of appeal, even some material from YouTube taken down, no appeal was successful.
So you're still not on PayPal? You can't get back onto them?
No, can't get back
So
on.
they are anti-free speech as an organisation?
And so is MailChimp for the same reason.
OK, and so is MailChimp. Barclays has given you compensation. Are you now banking with them, or have you got to bank with somebody else?
We've banked with somebody else, but one of our organisations, the International Federation for Therapeutic and Counselling Choice, registered in Great Britain, in England, has been denied accounts, and in other banks as well. It's the same situation. We just cannot get a bank account at the moment.
You can't get a bank account at the moment. So even though Barclays has paid you compensation, you're not able to bank with them?
No, we're not allowed to bank with them. They have not apologised. They've not made any admission of guilt. And they've certainly not reactivated either accounts. It was Core Issues Trust and the IFTCC. We now have, in another banking institution, a community account, for which we're grateful, but the IFTCC remains bankless.
And do you know how widespread a problem this is? Because we're finding out about it anecdotally, that we had the issue with the Free Speech Union, we've got the issue with Nigel Farage, we've got the issue with you. Do you know of other organisations that have been similarly affected?
I certainly do. I know that Christian Concern, for example, lost their MailChimp account at one point, and I think they were successful. It seems the larger organisations who can demonstrate a more significant following than we could are more successful. I think LifeSite News is another one that at one point lost their MailChimp account. So I think it is definitely going on.
And it seems to be very much a free speech issue, that if they don't like the views that you hold, then they come along and close you down. They don't close you down if you go along with sort of woke modern views.
From my point of view, what we have in the United Kingdom at the moment is a kind of monoculture. And if you venture out of that, this is the result. So we've lost this ideological diversity from which you would think there would be checks and balances. The basis, I would think, of true critique and of democracy. now it seems that one viewpoint is, you know, judge, jury, executioner. If I take my own circumstance, I was put out of the British Psychodrama Association for my views around homosexuality.
OK. Well, Barclays has given a response and made a comment. There has been no admission of liability by Barclays, and there's been no decision by the court calling into question Barclays' actions, including Barclays' decision to exit its relationship with Core Issues Trust and IFTCC. Barclays remains an advocate for the equality and dignity of all members of society, including the LGBT+ community, and our stance on this matter affirms this position. It's always very odd to pay out tens of thousands of pounds and not admit liability. So I'm not really convinced by that, Barclays, but thank you for replying. And if you want to come on the programme, Mr. Barclays Chairman, I'd be delighted.